In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers kiss the clouds, lived the Price family. Billionaire Richard Price had it all, but his greatest treasure and his biggest headache was his daughter, Samantha. Spoiled and entitled, she saw the world as her playground. And in her world, people like David Miller, the family driver, were invisible. For 6 years, David had been the picture of loyalty. His job was his lifeline. It paid for his wife's medicine and sent his kids to school. He was grateful, quiet, and dependable. But to Samantha, he was just another servant, easily discarded. One night, this dynamic exploded. Samantha, drunk and furious after a fight, was picked up by David. She was silent on the ride home. But inside the mansion, a storm was brewing. Her father, Richard, confronted her about her reckless behavior. The argument escalated until, in a moment of pure spite, Samantha screamed the words that would shatter a man's life. "Ask your driver what he tried to do to me." The room went cold. Richard, his face pale with fury, summoned David. Confused and terrified, David insisted he had done nothing but drive her home safely. But Samantha, with tears and a shaking voice, doubled down on her lie. Richard didn't need proof. He needed a scapegoat. That night, David was arrested. His wife's cries and his children's screams were the last things he heard as his world crumbled. The headlines were brutal. Billionaire's driver accused of misconduct. The court of public opinion had already passed its verdict. His wife was shunned. His children were bullied. Even with no evidence, Samantha's name and her father's money were enough. David was sentenced to prison. Inside those cold, grey walls, he lost everything. But amidst the despair, a single thought burned bright. One day I will prove my innocence, and she will face the truth. 3 years later, David walked out of prison a changed man. He was colder, harder, but his mind was a razor's edge. He had nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, karma was catching up with the Prices. Richard's company was under federal investigation for fraud, and Samantha's gilded life was tarnished with guilt and excess. She drowned her shame in parties and alcohol, a prisoner in her own luxurious cage. Then, a twist of fate, David ran into Lisa, a former friend of Samantha's. Riddled with her own guilt, Lisa confessed something shocking. Samantha had once drunkenly admitted the whole thing was a lie. A cruel tantrum aimed at her father because he wouldn't buy her a new car. The truth was out there. David just needed to make the world listen. He didn't want revenge. He wanted justice. He formulated a plan, quiet and brilliant. David took a job as a chauffeur for a high-end production company. Months went by until the perfect opportunity arose. Samantha booked a ride for an exclusive TV interview. David volunteered for the job. When she slid into the back of the car, she didn't recognize the quiet driver with haunted eyes. But then their gazes met in the rearview mirror. She froze. "You ... double quotes," she whispered, her voice trembling. David simply nodded. Yes, the man you destroyed. Panic seized her. Please, don't hurt me. I'm not here to hurt you, David said, his voice calm and steady. I just want you to tell the truth, for everyone to hear. What she didn't know was that tiny, hidden cameras were recording everything. As the car moved silently through the city streets, David began to question her. He wasn't angry or aggressive. His questions were simple, his tone even. At first, she denied it all, but David's quiet persistence chipped away at her defenses. His words were not accusations. They were mirrors reflecting her own guilt. Her voice cracked. Tears began to fall. And then she broke. I lied. She sobbed. I was angry. I wanted to hurt my father. I never meant to ruin your life. I'm so sorry. David stopped the car. He turned off the engine and looked at her one last time. That's all I needed, he said. He got out and walked away, leaving her alone with her confession. Within hours, the video went viral. The world watched Samantha Price admit her lie. The same media that had crucified David now championed his vindication. The public outrage was a tidal wave. Samantha became a symbol of privilege and corruption. Her father's empire, already fragile, collapsed under the weight of the scandal. Investors pulled out, brands cut ties, and Richard Price was forced to resign in disgrace. For David, it was a bittersweet victory. He had his name back, but he could never reclaim the lost years or erase his family's pain. Instead of seeking revenge, he chose to rebuild. He began speaking at schools and community centers, sharing his story, advocating for truth and justice. A year later, at one of his talks, a familiar figure stood quietly at the back of the room. It was Samantha. After the event, she approached him, her face stripped of its former arrogance. I know I can't undo what I did, she said, her voice barely a whisper. But I needed to say sorry in person. David looked at the woman who had cost him so much and said something that stunned her. I forgave you the day I got my freedom. Because holding hate means you're still my jailer, and I'm done being your prisoner. Tears streamed down her face. In that moment, forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past, but about David freeing himself from it forever. He went on to build a new life, finding peace in family and quiet success. Samantha vanished from the public eye, seeking her own form of atonement in obscurity. Their story became a legend, a stark reminder that while power can build walls of lies, the truth is a force that can bring them all crashing down. As David once said, they say revenge is sweet, but truth is sweeter. Because when lies fall apart, justice speaks louder than hate ever could. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that matters. See you next time.